Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, dear retirement answer man. Happy birthday to me. Welcome to the show dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement, but to have the confidence, because you're doing the work, to really lean in and rock it. I'm going to have some demerit points from Nicole Rockstar Mills because I sang on the podcast. I'm not supposed to do that. I've been forbidden. But today, January 22nd, is my birthday. I am 58 years old and super excited about life. All right. We are continuing on with our Retirement Plan Live case study with Laura and Nick. Today, we're going to talk about the resources they have to fund their life. One thing I think is interesting about this is Laura was in the private sector her entire life and had to build her assets. Nick, on the other hand, was in the military and the government and still had to build his assets, but has some other social benefits in terms of guaranteed income that you get when you work in public service. And it is a reflection in his net worth. He has he's a wealthy man, but he's not one of those that has just amassed millions of dollars in a 401k. He took a different route. So we're going to talk about those assets. One thing that's critical, I think, in doing a retirement plan of record and knowing what's feasible is obviously getting answers to questions you have, but giving you a different perspective on how you approach life. And let me give you an example. So over the holidays, I did a feasibility test on my own retirement. Set a vision for what I thought we needed, worked through the resources we had currently and the savings that we're doing, put in some income that I expect to receive, say, over the next 10, 20 years, and did a feasibility test. Now, you're probably thinking, dude, this is your job. Of course you did that. No, I don't have a robust retirement plan, partly because I do this all day long and I know I have some intuition over my 30 plus years of doing this for other people of where we're at. Also because I am so jazzed about what I do and I have had my nose down to the grindstone for a few decades in my work. I'm an entrepreneur, but in my case, building the practice, building the business, investing in those things. And that causes you not to save a lot early on because you're investing in the business, save in traditional senses anyway. And so I've had my nose down just trying to build the engine and build, whatever wealth I have. Probably a lot like you, even if you worked for a company. You were just focused, accumulate, build, accumulate. Provide for your family, try to have some fun and balance, but accumulate. And so I never really looked up. I don't look up very often, and I did it over the holidays when I had a week or so by myself. And the short answer is, if I wanted to today, with some maybe slight adjustments, I could retire. That's pretty cool. I don't know why it didn't really shock me, but it just, I could not work. I don't have to have my nose down to the grindstone, there you go, anymore if I didn't want to, financially anyway. And that's not really left me, and I'm hoping that. And so then the thing that happens now is, what do you do with that? First off, it's like, I must have done something wrong. That can't be right. That's a natural reaction for others that have gone through a process and saw. But it also changes how you perceive the work that you do. Whether you work at a corporation or you're like me and you own a business. Because you're only doing it because you want to accumulate more assets for something that you haven't articulated yet. No. Or you want to accumulate more assets because of a buffer you want to create in your financial life. Or because you want to. And when you work just because you want to, all of a sudden, you start to look at decisions a little bit differently. That's a healthy thing. So imagine you work at a corporation, and I've seen this happen in years, and we go through, they get a plan of record, they see and they believe that, okay, I get it. I see it. It's uncomfortable to think that I'm okay, I could retire today, but I see it. But I still want to work. All of a sudden, they're not as caught up in office politics of trying to impress everybody, to be at every meeting and do everything for everybody else to prove yourself over and over and over again, which is a cycle a lot of us have been on for years in our careers. And they start to find more joy in their work because they're just doing it because they love it. They're doing it for the love of it, and they can create better boundaries. That's pretty cool. That's okay. What's the punchline here as far as me in terms of the private practice that I run, the club that I run, this podcast? I am having a blast, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I am convicted on that. I've done a lot of work on that. It may help me to have more boundaries and be more focused, which is a good thing for me and probably a good thing for you and others that I serve. I feel very blessed. All right. Today, we're talking about the resources for Laura and Nick. So let's get that party started. Oh, whoa, wait a second. By the way, I forgot, I think last week, if you want to be live with Nick and or Laura on January 30th or February 2nd for our results show, go to livewithroger.com and register. You'll also be registered, I believe, for our Saturday, February 1st open house for the Rock Retirement Club, which is our online community that gives you all the tools you need and the education to build your plan of record so you can have clarity on where you stand and what you might want to do next to improve that situation. So go to livewithroger.com before you do that. I'm glad I got that in. Otherwise, Nicole would have got mad at me. All right, let's get this party started. All right, we are back with Laura. Laura, you were late. Explain why you were late.
Oh, I was just late because I was making sure my mom was taken care of, and it was a holiday today, so we didn't have coverage. So just one of the realities of life, taking care of mom.
A lot of people, when everybody's chipping in for coverage, if those handoffs, if you think somebody has it and they don't, and then somebody has to figure it out. And this time it was you, so
it was me. So again, sorry for being a little late.
No worries. I call it free time. So last week, we talked about your goals that came from your story and your values, which we did the prior week. Now that we've stepped away a little bit from those conversations, are there any insights or thoughts that you've had?
It's really interesting because sometimes when you're on the spot, you may not say everything exactly the way you want to say it. But, at this point, I can't think of anything that I would have corrected. I think the only thing that we missed on values was we didn't mention really fitness and health, which was my number 3 value, which is super important to me. It's something I do every day. It takes absolutely top priority, whether it's making sure for health or just because to me there's a psychological as well as physical health that feeds into that. So I get my workout in every day and try to stay healthy. And
I can attest that it's the best antidepressant.
Absolutely. It really helps to level things out, internally. If you have a lot going on and you skip that, forget it.
So why did you want to make sure we brought that up?
To me, it's very, very important. I mean, I don't want to wait until I can't do things. And so it's very important for me to stay healthy and fit so I can continue to enjoy life. I think that's one of the things you talk about a lot. And I think it's super important. Every time I hear someone mention retirement or talk about retirement, it almost sounds like you're going to the sofa and you're never going to get up again. But for me, I don't like using that word. It's kind of just the next phase of life because I'm not going to retire to anything, I guess other than, trying to just continue to enjoy life. But
that retire and retirement is one of those words that does have that connotation. And some people have tried to change the word. I don't know, but I get what you mean. Get what you mean.
Yes, because it definitely sounds like, okay, you're done, instead of I'm going into the next chapter of life, which could be anything. But retirement sounds like you're done almost.
So let's talk about fitness for a second. Okay. When you were younger, high school, 20s, 30s, were you an athlete?
I was not a athlete in the sense of organized sports or anything, but I've always enjoyed some level of fitness, whether it just, riding, bike riding, road riding has always been in and out a part of my life. In fact, during summer school, I would do the 40-mile ride to the university I was going to and back again. It was just one class, but boy, was that a good weight loss program. But yeah, it was good. So it's always been a part of my life, but I think it's something I'm much more aware of now at this age.
As you have gotten older, have you had to change how you exercise based on injuries and wearing things out and all that other? Have you had to deal with that at all?
I think the only thing I'm really aware of is running. I love the feeling of running. I mean, I don't run so much that I necessarily get the runner's high, but I think I come close. And if I could, I'd run every day, but I know I can't. So it's something that I make sure I don't do back to back. But that's about the only thing I really am aware of.
That's
There's
good.
a lot of good information coming out on women's health right now about not necessarily get away from the cardio, but don't just focus on cardio, start to lift weights because women's muscle mass atrophies very quickly based on hormonal levels and all that. But so it's something I'm more aware of now, and I'm really integrating that consciously as I've gotten older.
I was going to ask about weight training because that's one, especially with endurance athletes riding 40 miles to one class. I barely made it to one class in college. Is weight training is muscle mass. So you've incorporated that. Any other things that you've incorporated into your health protocols?
I would say, and some people may not agree with this, but less red meat. I try to do a little more healthy eating. Not to say that I don't enjoy going out and having a good meal, but on a day-to-day, I try to be a little healthier about my choices.
Okay.
Not a fast food person anymore. Although if the need arises, I won't die doing that or anything, but it's not a regular thing.
Okay.
Trying to be smarter with food.
Okay. We're working on the podcast. This is related to that word retirement before we get into your resources, because we actually have a purpose for being here, but I wanted to explore that a little bit more. I agree with you on, we call it rocking retirement. Rocking is a verb. But I was thinking of a quote from Hunter S. Thompson that I think encapsulates what retirement should be, what life should be, but what retirement should be. And I pulled it up because I don't have it memorized, but I'll read it here briefly. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a loud cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride!" Right? I think that's
pretty awesome.
That would be a great way to retire. Have your retirement and look back and say, "Holy crap, that was awesome!" And hopefully, your goals represent that for you.
Absolutely, yes.
But we do have to figure out how we're going to pay for them. So today, I wanted to talk about that, and we'll stay relatively high level, so we don't have to get into your personal finances too deeply publicly, even though Laura's not your name and we're changing some things. There are 3 sources of capital that will pay for all of the dollars attached to the goals. And the first source is what we call social capital in planning, financial planning. And that's going to be like Social Security or pensions or annuity income. So let's start there. Do you qualify for Social Security?
I will when I get there, yes.
All right. Have you pulled up your benefit? Do you know roughly?
I have.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
And what roughly will you get a month?
About, well, it depends, of course, when you decide to retire or when you decide to start to draw on it. But I'm thinking if I draw between ages 65 and 66, it would be about $3,000 a month.
Okay. And I think your full retirement age is 67.
Okay.
I'll have to look at it because it changes by month. But have you actually looked at your statement and gone into SSA.gov?
I love SSA.gov. Thank you for bringing that up in previous podcasts as well. Yes, I have.
And so at full retirement age, it's about $3,000 a month, you recall?
Yeah, at 67, it would actually be about 33, I think.
Okay. So initially, when you're building a plan of record, it's always just good to use that number, the full retirement.
Full retirement age. Okay.
Doesn't mean you can't change it later on, but that way you don't get into, it's just a good default to use. And then that's going to be inflation adjusted. Do you have any pensions?
I have a small pension from a previous job before they got rid of them all everywhere. And it's going to be about let's say 520 a month, maybe.
520 a month.
And that can start right away.
Do you know if it increases if you delay?
They only communicate through email, and I sent out an email and they said it takes 2 to 3 weeks to hear anything back.
So this is interesting. Just for those of you that do have pensions, when they start, usually there's a determined retirement date. Usually it's 65. Sometimes it's different. And some pensions, like you say, Laura, you could start yours today and get it, or you could delay. Some will increase if you delay based on interest rates and other factors. Some will not. And you're experiencing what we experience all the time in our practice, Laura, is that trying to get information, just any information on how the benefit actually works and how it's calculated is near impossible. I have a client who is a wonderful man who was pretty senior in the company that he has a pension on and extremely detailed. And he has this as his like personal mission. And he's just amazed at how he can't get clear information. So just be aware of that. So we'll assume it can start today, but we don't know if it increases or not if you wait.
Correct.
If it doesn't increase, is there a reason you haven't started it already?
Probably because I don't know if it increases, and you had mentioned that, and that's why I sent out that email, but I still haven't received anything back.
Okay.
I do find it amazing exactly what you're saying. There's no phone number. There's no way to get in touch with anyone. There's no website. It's all paper, or email.
Okay.
They don't want to talk to you is what I'm feeling. And they did try to actually buy it out because they've now gotten rid of that plan altogether.
Do you recall what they offered when they did?
It was maybe 100 grand.
100 grand. Okay.
Yeah. I thought, having guaranteed money for the rest of my life that I didn't have to, wonder if I thought it might be a better plan than not at that moment.
And you may still have a lump sum option, right? And your decision on do you take a lump sum or a pension is easier because you don't have all the other options. Joint life, 50% survive.
Right.
You don't have to deal with all that in your situation. And there may be a protocol to say, hey, I want to start my benefit, do the calculation. And that might give you a lot of the data you're seeking. So that might be something to pursue because they should have a process for that. Do you have any other social capital, pensions or annuity income that you have set up?
No, nothing's just those two.
Okay. When you give yourself the birthday present, assuming it's possible, of age 60, let's move to human capital, which is any kind of work or income that you receive that's more from your efforts than a socialized benefit. Are you going to do any kind of work when you retire?
I don't think so, but you never know. I still feel like, I want to be a contributing member of society, and I want to still keep learning and growing. And thought of for me, the strangest thing, I guess, would be grooming dogs. I don't know why. I love animals. So I could do that part-time or something, but it's not the plan. It's not the plan to make ends meet. It would be just something different to do and learn.
Okay. We're going to assume no work.
Okay.
Okay. In our feasibility test, which is what we're working on. What's interesting is grooming dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And Your male cohort, who you have not heard yet, he's a big volunteer person. We had a pretty good discussion around how getting a paycheck changes it from just enjoying the act to now I got to show up on time and they can tell me when to be there and just all this stuff. So interesting. Okay, so no human capital. The other capital is going to be your financial capital, which is what we think of most of the time, right? Money. So let's start off with after-tax assets. So those are assets in a bank account, in an after-tax brokerage account that are either invested or sitting in savings. We can just use a sum total.
Would that include the Roth IRA or not?
It would not. It would not.
It would not. Okay.
So like your savings account, or if you have an individual investment account.
Okay. No, I would think that between like cash CDs, that kind of stuff, anything that's fairly liquid, I'd have about 150,000.
Okay. So we have 150,000 in after-tax assets. Now we're going to look at tax deferred. So tax deferred are traditional IRAs, traditional 401ks, annuities, whether they're in our IRA or not. So these are essentially monies that you have not paid tax on yet.
Okay.
You can add that up. I can see you pulling a calculator.
Yes, you see me grabbing my phone and trying to add. So that's an interesting thing too. And, interesting thing to talk about is I just let my 401k stay in my previous employer's spots. It was kind of like a homage to, this part of my blood or part of things I learned at different places since I worked for some large corporations, and I left it there. And now I'm like, oh, geez, I've got money here and I've got it there and then I've got it there. And I did combine two of them, which is making it a little easier. But I have three different locations, which, of course, with the stock market doing what it does, you're constantly adding them up to see where you're at.
Right.
Or so. So in that, I have about 1.3.
1.3 million. Okay. And you're contributing while you're working still?
Yes.
And
it's a maximum.
In a tax deferred way?
Yes.
Okay. And then now we're going to talk about tax free. So this is going to include Roth IRAs, 401ks, health savings accounts. Those will be the two main assets.
So with the Roth, I have about 115 in a Roth. I think I mentioned before, I wish I would have understood Roth IRAs a little better and had put more in there, but it is what it is now. A health savings account, are those separate, or is that something you can just open up? I mean, how do you open up a health? Yes.
Yeah, good question. So a health savings account scheme is structured based on the type of health care you have, right? Okay. So you probably have health care through your employer.
Correct.
And they may have a menu of different types of plans, bronze, silver, gold. And if you have a healthcare plan that is called HSA compliant, then you qualify and could open up an HSA account. And what makes a health savings account HSA compliant is it's a high deductible healthcare plan. So it doesn't have a low deductibility in terms of, and I'm looking up the numbers, what the deductible amount is. So as an example, my medical plan, I intentionally chose an HSA plan because I wanted to self-insure more out of pocket because I don't use healthcare a lot. And then that allowed me to get money into that. I'm looking up the numbers for 2025, and the maximum annual deductible for an individual is $1,650 and max out of pocket is $8,300. So you essentially would cover that. But your plan would say it's HSA compliant.
And then you could open an HSA with your bank, or where do you open it?
Good question. So number one is you have to have a high deductible policy.
Okay.
And usually it'll say HSA compliant. So you check that. And if you have one of those, then you are eligible to open up a health savings account, which would be usually the employer has one that they suggest. But Fidelity is where I think of the ones I've seen is the best place to have one. That's where I have mine. And then you're allowed to contribute as an individual $4,300 a year to the health savings account. And if you're over 55, you can add another $1,000 as a catch up. So in this case, it would be $5,300 to a health savings account. and that is deductible off your income.
Okay.
So you get a deduction, and then as long as you pull that money out to cover qualified medical expenses, it comes out tax-free.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so you can use it to cover your healthcare that you're now having to pay for.
Right. The idea is you get this money into the health savings account. So if you have an event, you can cover the max out of pocket.
Okay.
And then the health, it's like more catastrophic type insurance. Since we're peeling this onion a little bit, what's interesting about it is this is one of those things that it's like a Roth IRA. I wish I would have known earlier and done something, right? But we all have the, regrets of various levels of severity. Is that most people will use the health savings account, take the money out when they need it. What I do, and I think if you're overfunded is an interesting thing to do, is I actually have mine invested just like a Roth IRA.
Okay.
And then I keep track of all of my medical bills, because if you, like in this case, you, Laura, if you had a $2,000 medical bill for whatever this year, you could just pay it cash. And if you kept your records, you could get reimbursed for that 10 years from now, because there's no time limit.
Wow.
So you can build up and then it can act like tax-free bucket of money.
All right.
But for now, we're not that worried about it, right? If you retire next year and you leave your employer plan, when you go into the government marketplace, it might be something to consider, because before Medicare, you could get 5 years of contributions in there and it might help. But it's going to be one of those smaller levers to optimize. It's not going to be a huge one for you, but hey, it's nice to optimize. Okay, let's get out of that rabbit hole. So, no health savings account for you?
None.
Okay. And you have a house. So any other financial assets before we go? Any other financial assets?
No.
Okay. Let's talk about your house.
Okay.
Roughly, what is the value of your house?
I would say roughly about $900,000.
Okay. And do you have any debt on the house?
Zero debt.
Do you have any debt?
Zero debt.
Okay. And you plan to age in place as of now? No plans to move or?
Correct. I love my location as of now. Yes.
Yeah, you had talked about that. Never say never, but.
Right. Exactly. And there may come a point in time where I need to move into a smaller place or a place that has a little help offered. But for now, I really like where I live.
You're good to go.
Yes.
Do you expect to receive any money from corporate benefits or inheritance or anything like that at some point?
I don't expect, no, but I think someday my mom will pass and there'll be a little bit of money, but it's distributed amongst many people. So it wouldn't be, maybe 100,000, 200,000, nothing.
Okay. Well, $100,000 is a decent percentage of your of your financial assets, right? So these are always weird conversations, but we got to deal with reality here, right? So an estimate would be about $100,000, or what? Would it be $200,000? What do you
Let's go with the 100. She has a lot of grandchildren.
Okay. Do you know, who is dealing with, okay, we know what happens because she needs care now. Who is dealing with, okay, when she does pass, they have the reins to figure all this out? Who is that executor or power of attorney?
She has a trust, and my brother and sister are on there as the executor.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And is there clarity so you know that you're included in that and all of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, just for planning purposes, it's an awkward question, but we just need a handicap. In what year? I mean, how long will your mother live?
Oh, that's a good question. If you could help me out, I'd love it. I'm going to just say on the high side. I am saying 10 years, but I know it's not 10 years. It just can't. I mean, she's very healthy, but the dementia is setting in, and unfortunately, that could also dry out all her assets.
For sure.
Well know. So that's why I don't put that down in my mind or any of my planning as something that is going to happen. Because if we have to do a reverse mortgage to pay off things, or sell her place to put her in an full care, what is it? Extended living situation, or
Yeah, and what we'll do when we look at it, because we're building a net worth here, a good thing that you can do is have it listed as a future cash flow. But we cannot include it in the analysis, but at least have it bookmark as something that we can look at on and off, because it's such, we don't want to count on something that you may not even get.
Exactly.
Okay. So those are your resources. And now what we need to do, and we'll do this during the live event as part of what we do, because there'll be some other things that we do, because we're going to do it a little bit differently this year, is now we just need to do a feasibility study and say, okay, here are the goals that Laura has and all the spending and the sequence of the spending. And here are the cash flow that I have, you have, Social Security, et cetera. And my assets, do they match up, or are they lopsided one way or the other? So we can have a feasible plan, because we need to know, right? And
exactly.
And then we'll get into how do we make it resilient, because that's even just as important, but an often misstep.
Okay.
Anything I didn't ask that you thought I would or should have?
No, I think that covers all of it. I'm kind of curious, and maybe you will go over this later, about taxes. I mean, how do we figure out taxes?
We don't. First of all, we don't figure it out. The order in what, so now we have your cash flow and your assets. And in your case, and you bring up a good point, outside what Social Security and this pension does not cover is going to have to come from your assets, right?
Correct.
And if we look at your assets, we have 150,000 taxable, 115,000 Roth. The rest is going to come from your IRA.
Correct.
Which hasn't been taxed.
Right.
And that means every dollar you take out of your IRA, because you'll blow through your after-tax assets in Roth pretty quickly if you started there. So every dollar that comes out of your IRA is going to be like taxable income, just like you had a job.
Correct.
The way that when in the feasibility test, it will have assumptions on taxes, and will include that within the test.
Okay.
So the example would be in year 2, Laura needs, 50,000, but she only has 30,000 in income. We'll take the money from this account, and any tax consequence will be added on top. So it'll do that year by year in all of the trials.
Okay.
There'll be a lot of simplifying assumptions, but it'll be close enough to know whether we're in a safe direction or not.
Okay.
Another thing that we actually didn't talk about is all of the spending that we mapped out, Laura. It's adding inflation on all of those things.
Oh, okay.
Right. So if we're buying a car 10 years from now and we put $40,000 in the modeling, it'll be 40,000 plus the inflation on top of it for 10 years.
Okay.
So for a feasibility test, we're trying to incorporate as much as we can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
When we're looking at how to make it resilient, forecast a little bit. So let's assume this is all feasible. Now it's okay. Okay, it's feasible. That feels safe. I get to have my birthday present, but now how do I actually do it? So the market doesn't blow the plan up, or a health event doesn't blow the plan up. We have to figure out how resilient it is. And then where specifically am I going to get every dollar to manage taxes so we're not being dumb?
Okay. Now your Rock the Retirement Club, you guys use a software, correct?
Yeah, that's what we'll be using in this test. Yeah.
And so you input all this information, and it kind of spits out the answer to a certain extent?
It does, which you will see.
Okay.
In fact, one I'm building that we're going to look at when you and I meet on the 30th, when you come into the club, because that's part of what you get for doing this, it'll already be built because we would have done it together.
Okay.
Then you can put more details in when it's private and not public.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll use that software for the feasibility. And then there's a Excel planner that we'll use in the 30th event too, that you'll have as well when you're really mapping out in detail how exactly you're going to get every dollar.
Okay.
I think one thing, Laura, is when you're doing this, to know whether it's feasible, you have to have that long-term perspective, right? like when you were riding your bike 40 miles to class, you need to know it's feasible, right?
Yes.
You got the legs and the lungs, you got the bike, and you have your tentative route mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
But making it resilient is I got my extra tube, I got a bike kit, I got my phone, and you can only see so far over the horizon. So when you're actually doing this, you don't want to think, you can't look too far forward. You need to look, and I'd say 5 years in retirement, but like on a bike, you can't look too far forward or you might just miss everything that's coming at you right now.
Right.
The car that comes out of the corner. So it's important to close the aperture and focus on the near term and not worry about the horizon all the time, but what's over the horizon. Okay. So next week, we're going to talk about some risk. Your feeling on risk and investments and aging, and just get a sense of where your mind's at there.
Okay. Sounds great.
All right, we are back with Nick. Nick, how is 2025 starting off for you?
So far, so good, Roger. Have a little bit of a lingering cold, but hopefully we'll get through this okay without too many outbursts of a cough. How are you?
I'm starting off great. It's like every morning I get up before I get out of bed, I say, this is going to be a great day. There's going to be challenges, but it's going to be a great day. And it's sort of like the year too. It's going to be a great year. I'm going to have challenges that I can't foresee. But now I pick a word every year. Do you do that? Anything like that for marking a new year?
I really haven't. I know you do that, and I really haven't taken that one on. And maybe I should think about it.
Okay, well, let's play a game real quick. If you did have a word for this year, what's the first one that comes to mind?
Good question. Maybe.
That's not a very powerful word.
No, that's not the one I was coming up with. I was going to say, and maybe it's changes.
Okay. Well, just marinate on that. You don't have to commit to it. Changes. It's sort of a theme. Yeah, okay. Mine is outdoors. I think I've specifically Colorado, and I'm using that as a filter to say yes or no to things in my life. Right. So, all right, it'd be interesting. You don't feel obligated. Today, we are going to get more practical. So the last two times we chatted, we started at the beginning of Nick. We went through your values, which I really enjoyed. And then you created some goals that are congruent with those values. Now we've got to figure out how the heck are we going to pay for any of this? And is it feasible? Right. And so that's what we're going to do today. There are 3 sources of capital that you're going to have to pay for or fund all those goals. The first one is something we call social capital, which is socialized benefits. So we think of Social Security, pensions, etc. So let's start there. Now, you're a government dude. Do you qualify for Social Security?
I will qualify for Social Security, yes.
Okay. And have you looked at your Social Security statement lately?
I did earlier this year, and at the time, it looked like, I think at 62, I was going to be eligible for about $2,200 a month. I don't remember what the 67 and 70 number were, though.
Okay.
But I think it's like an 8% increase per year, right?
Correct. And there are other aspects of that if you take early. So what made you key in on the 62 number, age 62 number?
So the reason why I keyed in on that number is as a federal employee, if I retire before the age of 62, I'm eligible for a special supplemental annuity for the years between the time I retire, pre-62, until 62. And it's a calculation based upon that number. And so that's why I zoned in on that number, because it informs the special annuity that I would get if I retire prior to 62.
Okay.
So it wasn't because I'm thinking I'm taking it at 62. No.
And you're not required to take it at 62 for that special annuity.
No, you're at 62. The special annuity just ends. And then what you do from that point forward is
up to you.
Your regular decision-making process. Yes.
Understood. Okay. I am blessed that we have Scott Sanborn on our team, who is a retired colonel, Army. So he can always help me dive into these things because he's a specialist there. Okay, so you have Social Security, which will start at 62, and I can infer into what the full retirement age is. If you happen to have that number, that would be helpful, but I don't need it today.
I can get it for you, Roger.
And I believe, well, we are planning on you retiring before 62. So have you figured that special annuity out? Do you have an estimate?
Yes. So the estimate was $9,000 a year for the special annuity.
And that would end at when you turn 62.
It ends the first day of the month that you turn 62.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Perfecto. Do you have any other pensions or socialized type of income?
Yes. So at retirement age, I'll also draw my federal annuity. The estimate on that is if I retired at the end of 2025, it would be approximately $55,000 a year. That is not COLA adjusted until I turn 63. So that number for the first 5 years, if I were to retire at the end of this year, that number would not change for the first 5 years.
And then COLA at 65, you said?
63.
63.
So
okay.
it's so they institute COLA on the first day of December every year. And because my birthday is in December, that means I have to wait until the first day of the month of my 63rd birthday before I get my first COLA. It's just one of those things that is a cutoff date. And for me, it just happens to be a negative for me because I have to go an extra year before I get a COLA.
Okay. And you're about to go back to that special annuity for a second.
Right. That is non-COLA adjusted also for the period of time I draw it. So if I retired at the end of next year, it would be 4 years of the exact same number.
Understood. Any other income that you have?
Yes. So as a former service member, I do receive a disability check from the Veterans Affairs Department, and that is COLA adjusted each year. And for 2025, that will equate to about $13,000 for the year.
And is that tax-free?
That is tax-free.
Okay.
That is the great benefit of that payment is it's completely tax-free.
Disability typically is, depending on how it's paid for. And then that is for life.
That is for life. Yes.
Okay. Any other social capital, annuity payments? Sounds like you have a pretty good handle on things.
Nope, that's my social capital.
Okay. Do you plan to have, I think I know the answer to this. We sort of talked about it. Do you plan to have any work of any sort for money?
I don't plan on it at this point. I'm not going to say I would be against doing something that maybe I would enjoy that would come with a side benefit, like working at a bookstore or a movie theater or something part-time. But at this point, I would prefer not to work. But I'm not necessarily against it. It just wouldn't be where I'd want to land.
Yeah, we're talking walking around money, as they say.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I would have to stay under the Social Security earnings cap because of that special annuity. So even if I did work, I would be limited to whatever the annual cap is on earnings before you hit the reduction limits for Social Security.
Yeah, which are pretty low. I don't have them here in front of me, but they're pretty low. Yeah. Okay.
Seems like it's in the $20,000 range, maybe.
Yeah, and until you hit full retirement, and then they don't. Yeah, but
right.
In your case, I don't think this is going to be. It's not planning on something you have to navigate.
Right.
Okay. So let's get to financial capital, and let's just start with just use high level numbers like after tax money. So that's money in your bank account. If you have an after tax investment account, savings account, what's a total there?
The total for after tax would be, I guess, about 515.
515,000?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about pre-tax? That's traditional IRA, traditional 401k, et cetera, or 403b.
Right. My traditional is 672,000.
And then what about tax-free, which would be Roth and HSA if you have one, which probably not.
Right. So tax-free is 147,000.
Okay. And you own your home. Anything else financially?
Nope, that's it financially.
Now, do you own any non-traditional investments? Like, let's talk about real estate. You have your house. Let's actually go to other assets. Give me a rough value of your home.
My home is valued at about 500,000.
Okay. Do you own any other real estate or other non-traditional assets?
I own a share of a family cabin, which is in a LLC. So I don't own it directly, I guess. To liquidate out of it would be very complicated. And I also have a investment in a property development firm for $20,000. That's, I guess, non-traditional probably.
That's an odd duck in the mix. It's ink in the water.
So a nephew of mine works in that realm. And there was an opportunity for family members to buy into this opportunity at a lower rate. Traditionally, it's like 50,000, but for family members, they allowed investments below 50,000. And so it was some money sitting on the side that I felt like might be able to earn something better. And so I rolled the dice, and we'll see where it goes.
No, I have a number of those, and it's one of those things. You put the money, you assume it's gone, and it either is gone or you're like, oh, wow, that's a surprise years later.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about the cabin. Roughly, what is your value in that?
My value is approximately $130,000.
And this is, and you're from, originally from the north, which is not unusual. The upper Midwest. Yeah, which is not unusual to have a cabin. I know a number of people that have those type of things. And it's more of a use asset, right? The family uses it.
Yes. So we use it exclusively for family. It's not a rental of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you expect to have any inheritances?
I do expect probably to inherit some money at some point, but it's really hard to know because you just don't know where people are going to land in the final time in their life. And I would be surprised if I didn't inherit something, but there's not a dollar value I could put on it or even a time frame.
Would it be from a parent?
One side of my family is very long-lived into the 90s. And the other side of my family isn't quite as long-lived, but still late 80s is normal. And so it would probably be 5 to 10 years out, I would expect.
Okay. So 5 to 10 years out is a time frame. Could you even swag an amount if you had to?
If I had to, I would guess probably between $100,000 and $200,000. I would guess. Could be more, could be less, but that would probably be the best guess.
Okay. But you don't have like communicated estate plan. This is what's going to happen.
I do know that I am a direct, I'm in my parents' estate directly. I'm also I have an aunt and uncle who are childless, who have left half of their estate to their nieces and nephews, which number currently like 25 or 26. They have indicated that if you pass away before they do, that your share will go to the other nieces and nephews. However, once again, I don't really have a really great idea of their estate. I just know that I'm going to be one of a group of nieces and nephews who inherit when they pass away. And 50% of their estate goes to charity and 50% goes to family is what I do know.
Okay. And, I feel like I hear in your voice what I hear all the time when we talk about this stuff. It's like uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
None of us want to see the older generation go away. I know that's a natural reaction for most of us.
And also just the money part feels like,
yeah.
Ugh. And the reason I was poking a little bit on it, Nick, was just, we'll have it listed, but we won't include it.
Okay.
But it's good to just have it listed as a possibility. But in some cases, as uncomfortable as it is, it could be a key component. And I've had number instances. Well, I know that I am getting this share, and I have a pretty high estimate that it's this amount and this is the state of their health. It's reality. It's information that even though it's uncomfortable, we should still incorporate. In your case, I don't think so, but we can still have it listed.
Right.
But I get it. They have 20 nieces and nephews, 20 plus nieces and nephews.
20 plus.
Wow.
Yeah. My uncle had a very extensive family. It's not on our side of the family. We're much smaller.
Do you have any debt? Bless you.
I do have debt. Currently, I have a $305,000 mortgage. It's at 2.25%, so I don't feel any desire to pay it off.
Is that a 30-year or a...
It's a 30-year, of which I've paid down 8 years, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in a similar situation and feel the same way. Any other debt?
Yeah, so then I also have a car loan that has 4 years remaining for $28,000, and that's a 0% interest rate. So once again, I don't desire to pay it off. I just would like to pay it off as part of my monthly expenses.
Okay. I have a random question, totally unrelated to anything, which is, what does Nick splurge on for himself? And I'm not talking experiences. Well, it could be a bottle of wine. It could be a watch. It could be anything. What's a Nick splurge?
And a Nick splurge is a nice dinner out for me. You know, I like to, I enjoy the experience of food. And in the area in which I live, there's a lot of opportunities to try out some very highly rated restaurants. And so every few months, a group of us will go out and have, you know, what can be a $300 meal very easily. So that's probably where I splurge in a way that I feel is something that if I had to, I could live without. While I'm working, it's fine.
Yeah. I was talking with someone in the club the other day, and we were celebrating 2024, and they had two celebrations that I thought was hilarious as bookends. One was they got their trust updated. You know, very exciting goal to hit. But the other one was the other extreme was that they went to their first Michelin star restaurant. They are quite an experience. They are, and it is an experience. I mean, we don't have to get into stories right now. I've been to one, but I have a good friend, an attorney who is a high profile food and beverage attorney, and he has some crazy stories about service. Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, if I'm trying to think of the book. If you're into food, I have the book right over here. What is it? It's something hospitality. Okay. Hold on a second. Let me find it because this is good. Here it is. I had to run to my bookshelf to get it. It's Unreasonable Hospitality. I'll have to check that out. Well, actually, I bought like 4 of these books, Nick. So offline, let me get your address and I'll send it to you. It's by Will Guerrera. Thank you. And it's a story about a storied New York restaurant that went from the bottom to the top. And it's the level of detail that goes into fine dining, whether you're into fine dining or not, is just, I appreciate the intentionality and the attention to detail. Right. So. And the thin margins, even at the top. That I don't know. Their margins are also pretty thin, even at the very top of their game. Their margins are still, because they generally pay their staff better. They generally, you know, their jobs. They're not just transient jobs, right? Right. They're actually careers as opposed to I'm doing this in between. Right. Jobs. Right. Yeah. I've actually done personally some non-traditional investment in a restaurant or two. I would not recommend it, but there is a huge difference between a real operator and someone who runs a restaurant. And one thing I've learned is that a real operator, it comes down to, it is a science, and it's not a bad business if you really know how to operate a restaurant. The problem is 90% of the people that start restaurants I want to own a restaurant, and they don't have the pedigree to do the operational part of it. Anyway, we're small sidebar. That's a good splurge. Yep. I enjoy it once in a while. I'll send you the book. And then thanks. Next week, we're going to talk about risk. Okay? Yep. Sounds good. On your marks, get set. And we're off to set a little baby step we can take in the next 7 days to not just rock retirement, but rock life. I was laughing a few weeks ago because Fritz Gilbert, Retirement Manifesto, great blog, by the way. Fritz is a great guy, was on. And by the way, he was our first Retirement Plan Live case study. He was essentially the brainchild of this series. He was on social media. I deleted my Twitter account as part of the new year, but before I deleted my Twitter account, he was on there just giggly because it was almost December 31st, so he could update his net worth statement. He loves to do that. I like to do that too, to be honest with you. It's a great document. And so my challenge to you over the next 7 days, you got all your year-end statements by now, update or create a net worth statement. So you have a listing of all of your assets and all of your liabilities. So you've organized your financial resources. If you have never done this, we are going to share a net worth resource in our 6-Shot Saturday email, which you get every Saturday morning as a summary of the show or supplement. If you are not getting that, go to rogerwhitney.com and sign up for our 6-Shot Saturday email, because if you like the show, you're going to love our weekly recap. All right, time for the next installment of the missions of Zygmunt Kansler in his flights in a B-17 bomber in World War II. Been doing this since Memorial Day. All right, mission number 14 and 15, July 19th, 1944. Ship number 274, Sortie 10. Went to Munich, Germany today and hit an ordnance depot darn good. Lost quite a few ships on this raid. Our bombardier, Lieutenant Perella, went down. Hope he got to Earth safely. The flak was hell. Our number 2 engine was hit right through with flak, but held out till we got home. We were the only ship from our squadron to come back to our base. Wow. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and does not guarantee future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. Make sure you consult your legal, tax, or financial advisor before making any decisions.